I don't think I'm me anymore. Not really. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. I hope I am, because the alternative is bad. About a half a year ago, something happened to me that was so insane, so unbelievable that, well, no one believed me. You probably won't either, but I have to leave something behind to tell my story before I go, before I'm gone. To a jail, to an asylum, something else. It happened on one of my evening runs. I've had people call me an idiot for jogging at night, and for the longest time, I've just laughed them off. It's rarer than most people think to just get attacked by a stranger. Usually it's someone you know, someone you love, and when it's someone familiar like that, they're going to figure out a way to get you alone, even if you keep your exercise under the sun. I mean, besides, I live in a relatively affluent neighborhood, in the kind of place where crime is something that happens to other people. Imagine me, a man in his mid-30s wearing glasses and cursed with prematurely gray hair, migrating from top to bottom. I'm running a sedate pace on a concrete path that winds through my local park, phone held out in front so I can use it as a flashlight. The shadows are strange, shifting and bobbing as my handheld light catches trees and branches, throwing out dark, twisted shapes around me as I go. I've been running this path for so long now that its very eeriness is a comfort. Like a scary movie you've watched enough to remember each scene line for line. That's when I saw it. The thing, the being, huge, as wide as it was tall. I couldn't make out any details. It was simply too dark. The creature too far away for me to properly see anything except a dark silhouette, dimly visible against a far-off park light. I wouldn't have even seen it, I don't think, if it hadn't been on the same path as me. Moving at a speed I never could have matched. Moving toward me. The realization that the dark shape and I would meet flooded me with raw fear, and my heart raced in a way that had nothing to do with physical exertion. Stupidly, I ignored the fear, that God-given gift which allows me to recognize that which may cause me harm and provides him with the motivation and energy to run like hell in the opposite direction when he sees it. I don't believe in monsters, you see, or I didn't. It had to be a man, I told myself at the time, a really big man. They exist, I know they do. People large enough to make the rest of us look small and weak by comparison. Just watch basketball, Game of Thrones. Just a very large man, out for a nice late-night run through the park. I never even considered that it might be a bear, or some other kind of dangerous animal. The area I live in is too urban, too developed. Nothing larger than a squirrel had ever been seen around there in decades. So the large man ran towards me, and I ran towards it, my breathing growing sharp and erratic, a sense of absolute dread filling me up like I was a water balloon suckled around a tap of liquid fear. And that terror built and built until I felt as if just one more drop might pop me, and I would turn around and run, screaming like a little girl. I wish I had. I really, really wish I had. The closer it got, the more I realized how incredibly wrong I'd been. What came towards me wasn't a man at all, it was a woman. A small woman, petite even. Her long hair bunched up in a ponytail behind a cap with a Superman logo on it, despite the utter lack of sun. All at once my dread turned to embarrassed confusion. How had I managed to mistake her so completely? The shadows, I'd rationalize. A confusing perspective, that's all. As she came close, I turned the harsh white light from my phone away so I wouldn't blind her. She raised a hand in quiet greeting. Already, I had shifted my thoughts away from monsters to more mundane curiosity. No one else, as far as I knew, ran the same path as me this late, so meeting her here now was interesting. She responded with a wave of her own, along with a smile. A small smile. We came together side by side, her on my left, our shoulders practically touching. I wondered what it might be like to meet her again along this path. I was single. I thought she was pretty, And for the briefest moment, I imagined a montage of us slowly developing a connection as we met each other over and over again over weeks or months of shared nighttime runs. Make a good romance movie, I thought, if it hadn't already been made. And she twisted, jerking with unnatural motion to grab me around the neck. We stopped in a way that shouldn't have been possible. One instant we were running in opposite directions, the next we were standing motionless, her hand around my throat, holding me still with iron strength. I gasped and gagged, too shocked and stunned to fully understand what was happening, and then something pulled at me. And I don't just mean my body, I mean me, in a way I simply cannot even begin to describe. When I think of that moment, all I could imagine is a young kid sucking loud at a milkshake through a straw, but the metaphor doesn't even approach the sensation I experienced. My vision faltered and I blacked out for what I'm pretty sure was only moments. When I came to, I was alone and on the ground, alone and scared, alone and confused, but alone. The woman was gone. I picked up my phone and sprinted home, faster than I ever had before. And I don't mean that was any kind of exaggeration. I mean that literally. I track my runs through my phone's GPS, so it'd be pretty easy for me to check. And then life went on. Like nothing had happened. I don't know that I can explain how horrible that feels to have something so completely unimaginably strange and terrifying happen, and for not to matter in the slightest. If you've ever lost a loved one, probably understand what I mean. Feels like something should give, some shift under the momentous weight of what has happened, but the world is simply too big and uncaring to pay much mind to something so small as a death. Or what happened to me. At first, anyway. I made an appointment with my doctor and asked for a checkover. I'd vaguely encouraged her to focus on my neck, where the woman with the Superman hat had grabbed me, but apparently that had left no mark because she found nothing out of the ordinary. According to her, I was in perfect health. I told the story to my friends, but they just laughed, asking me whether I'd emptied out my small stockpile of shrooms before the run. After a few months of absolutely nothing strange happening to me, I even believed them. Started to run again after that. It was horrible at first. I found myself jumping at every shadow. As you could probably guess, in the dark park, I made my gait sounding like a kid on a pogo stick. I made myself reacclimate to it, forcing myself to believe my fear was irrational, faking it until I eventually made it, locking the memory away so I could get on with my life. And then I started losing time. Hours of memory simply erased from my mind. I'd be at home or leaving work or eating lunch or whatever, and then I'd be somewhere else, somewhere I didn't remember going, a street I didn't recognize, a shop I'd never been to. Once I even ended up in a park late at night. And for a moment I thought it was the usual one I ran through. It wasn't. As it turned out, just a random park. Those were the only times I actually realized something wasn't right. According to the psychologist I started seeing, I had something called dissociative amnesia, and it was likely the most of the time I didn't even notice that I'd forgotten things. It was because, I'd forgotten them. And it's hard to notice a thing you don't remember without explicit evidence that contradicts your own personal timeline. According to him, I'd probably been suffering with this condition my entire life, and just never knew until now. I don't think I believe him. He can't be right, not about something so essential, can he? Like, God, I want him to be right. I mean, please, just let me be crazy. People have gone missing, lots of them, enough that our local newspaper has a recurring story, a kind of a perpetual article they update with fresh victims on a weekly basis. They call the person responsible the Vanisher, because no one has ever found a body. Some say that the Vanisher can't really exist, that all this happening is an unusually large number of people deciding to run away to Canada or whatever. They say that the publicity itself is what's driving people to vanish. Troublemakers hoping to stir the pot. I know better. I think I might be the Vanisher. Or, not me, but what I am. Jesus, it's hard to explain. I feel crazy even thinking about it. Typing it out just adds the word batshit as an adjective. But it's good that it's insane. Insanity is the only thing that gives me hope at this point. I swear, I don't remember doing anything to anyone. But about the same time folks started going missing, I started dreaming about people and places I never knew. I've never been to, random faces, I thought, until one of them appeared right in front of me on the TV. A mother crying, desperately asking for people to come forward with information about her son, claiming she'd pay any ransom the kidnapper wanted as long as she got her boy back safe. I recognized her from my dreams. That prompted a search. On my part, an investigation into the people who disappeared, into their families and friends. I watched video after video, read article after article, anything with pictures or footage of people the Vanisher's victims might have known. I recognized far too many of them, even though I'd never seen them before in my life. I even guessed their names before reading them. How? How could I possibly know them? Dark thoughts imagine me as the serial killer, psychotically killing people during my blackouts, like I was in some cheesy crime serial. But even if that was happening, even if I was a modern-day Jekyll and Hyde, how the hell did I know their family members? Was I casing them, stalking them? And surely there wasn't enough time for that in the hours lost to me. In my search, which began calm and rational only to devolve into something mad and desperate, I found a web article claiming that the Vanisher wasn't new, that he or she had been active for years without anyone noticing, albeit on a much smaller scale. Desperate to find some evidence that would prove I was wrong, that I had nothing to do with what was happening, I clicked the link, turning blue-purple. To my horror, the picture was a selfie of 3 women smiling happily as they pressed their cheeks against each other. I don't know that I would recognize the woman in the middle if she hadn't been wearing a cap. One with a Superman logo on it. Her name was Haley. She had gone missing 5 years ago. Picture on the website was the last ever taken of her, taken mere hours before she'd left her friends to go home, never to be seen again. Except by me. On the night she'd attacked. The night I'd convinced myself had never happened. Now, that discovery took place over a month ago, according to the calendar on this computer, and since I've been losing more and more time, I'm disappearing. Fading away. I went to my sister, desperate to find someone who could help me. An ally, someone to hold on to, a shoulder to cry onto, someone who could explain that I was wrong, that everything was okay. I can't believe I was so selfish. She let me into her house. I closed the door behind me as I stepped inside. Houses have a smell to them. Not bad, usually. Unique, like a fingerprint. My sister's house smells of wood and popcorn, and as that scent, familiar from countless movie nights, wafted over me, I relaxed. My last recollection of that day was my hand outstretched and reaching for her. She was crying, though I don't understand why. Later, I don't know when exactly, I was walking inside a mall when I saw my sister's face staring back at me from a newsstand. Family torn apart as Vanisher continues spree, the headline read. The one her face was plastered under. This was the article I described earlier, the one the paper keeps updated with the latest victims. It wasn't just my sister on that page. My own face was there too, a smaller picture about halfway down, nestled amid a grid of the other victims, the lost. Only I'm not a victim, am I? I tried to scream, to shout out that I wasn't missing, that I was standing right there, right in the middle of the crowd, but the words never came out. After briefly looking over the stand, I just stepped away, uninterested in my own damn disappearance. I caught a reflection in a window as I passed by and watched with abject horror as I idly examined myself in it. A complete stranger. A man I'd never seen before stood in my place, checking my hair. Once more I attempted to shout, but once more the sound refused to escape from my mind into reality. I simply continued walking along the street, hands comfortably cozy inside the pockets in my jeans that were far tighter than any I'd ever previously felt comfortable wearing. My thoughts were muddled and confused. The stranger's actions felt like my own, right up until I directly tried to oppose them. Then I felt trapped. A passenger in a body that was and wasn't my own. Eventually the world dulled, then outright vanished. A few hours ago I awoke, lying on top of a public bench and covered in old newspapers, a dog's lead grasping in my hand. I have no memory of how I got there, and the dog I didn't know yapped and growled at me until I left. I went to a nearby library looking for somewhere warm and hopped onto a computer, the one I'm on right now. I've spent the last hour writing this out, trying to sort through my thoughts to leave behind an explanation. I hear voices screaming in the back of my head. So quiet but so loud. I think they've been there for a while. I've only just noticed. I think I'd recognize one of them. More than the others. Amber, sis, if you can see me typing this, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. And the next time I fade away, I don't think I'm coming back. Not really. I think I'm going to be one of the screaming voices. I hope I'm insane. I hope that the next time I wake, I'll be wearing a straitjacket and stuck inside a padded white cell. But I don't think I will. I'm so scared.
Hey there once again, kids, it's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I just wanted to give you a big thank you for watching tonight's video. If you guys ever wanted to help support the show, you can always do so if you watch the show on youtube.com/MrCreepyPasta or find the MrCreepyPasta Storytime podcast on iTunes, on Google Play, and on Spotify. And also, if you ever want to check out my wife's tea shop, it's etsy.com/ivorymonocletea, where she sells hand-blended herbal teas in the theme of Dungeons & Dragons and Harry Potter and Final Fantasy and the like. You can find the link for it, as well as many other links, in the description down below. And, drumroll please, a big thank you to everybody supporting me at patreon.com/MrCreepyPasta. People such as Taysia-lynn, Genobaga-Arneho, Daniel Poulsen, Trace Miles, Jordan Alexander Sanchez, Wayne Milstead, Dr. Strawberry, Chompski, Ken Lando Higuchi, Brianna Tine-Janzen, Nicholas Saeid Alyain, Buddy Burroughs, Stephen Van Huss, Kai Albertson, Goonington, G Weevil 3, Chance Burnett, Diane Kraus, Asia, Gabrielle the Baca, TheRedOakShieldVirus, Sindee Barney, Titty Connoisseur, really? Titty Connoisseur? Melissa Sweigart, Dante Rao, Last Blade Song, Cross Rights, The Ginger Bros, Eliminator 86, Andrew Steinberg, Jason Sistma, Holy Realm, and Rafael Rodriguez. Thank you so much to you guys out there on Patreon, to all of you listening to either the podcast or the YouTube show. And that is everything, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and sweet dreams.